care will be taken to maintain the privacy of those in attendance. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event your image is broadcasted. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today, the Bangarang people, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside in this area. I extend that respect to elders, past and present, of the Bangarang nations. Thank you. Okay, I'll now call for apologies. There's one with Councillor Longley. No further apologies. Will someone move to accept the apology? Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Law. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now, declaration of pecuniary and conflict of interest in the meeting business items. If there's no interest, we'll move on. Confirmation of minutes of the March Council meeting. Would someone like to move that confirmation? Moved Councillor Kennedy, seconded Councillor Thomas. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. There will be no mural minute. Recommend that it be noted, and there's a recommendation to approve item 4A for public forum to the agenda to allow public forum to occur at this time. Would someone like to move that, please? So moved. Moved Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Law. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I'll ask the group skate park to please present their petition. Would you like to come up to the podium? Thank you.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, Councillors and Mr Butler. We thank you for this opportunity to make this presentation of the Corridor Skate Park and BMX track petition. Over a 4-week period during February and March this year, a total of 1,964 signatures were collected from across the community in support of the skate park and BMX track remaining in John Street, where it has always been, and to ask that work start again on the skate park bowl extension. Everyone has been working for a lot of years. In addition to our petition, we also have a second petition to present to you. Mr Matthew Yates had an online petition on www.change.org for the same period as ours. He has asked that we present the 381 signatures from his petition with ours. Both petitions have been checked for people who have signed each petition more than once and for those who may have signed both petitions. The total number was adjusted if there was found to be so. Together, the total combined number of valid signatures collected and presented to you today is 2,338. We ask that you make these petitions and their signatures into account when making any decisions regarding the Corridor Skate Park and Corridor BMX track. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I'll now ask Mr. Silliger to. I'm sorry. Would there be any comments from councillors on that? Like to make comment on the petition? Councillor Longmire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regard to the presentation, and as the one that formally moved a notice of motion probably 2 meetings ago, it's with pleasure that I endorse the presentation today. And I think, just to remind Council that under the application that came forward from the Skate Park Committee, in the original context of that application, it was to do with the area that has been where it's been for so long. And so I think, and then in a response it went back to that Skate Park Committee for the allocation of funding from the community grant amount. It was also identified that money amount was specifically for that area. So I think it destroys any debate or opportunity to go anywhere else but in that location. And so that's where I think is the context of where it is. Let's get on with it, let's make it happen for these children and the rest of the community that have employed 2,300 signatures on a petition is pretty powerful. Well done to the children and well done to the skate park committee.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Well said. Councillor Ward, would you?
Oh, no, not really. I'd just like to endorse all of Councillor Longmire's remarks and say that the skateboard park and the BMX track have been there for a considerable time, and it would be a shame to see them shifted to another area.
Thanks, Councillor Ward. Would there be any further comments, councillors? If not, we shall move on to the next speaker. Okay, Mr. Silliger, would you like to present?
Good morning, councillors. Today I'm here to talk about rates, and first of all I'd like to thank Mr. Butler and Mr. Parker for the help that they gave me leading up to this meeting, making themselves available. I noticed that the rates are on the agenda today, but I'm not here to talk about the actual rate review. I'd like to talk about the way that rates are calculated and the increase in rates, not the actual review, and the current rating system. I reiterate, I'm not here today to talk about the rate review or to lower the income of the Shire or the ordinary way the rates are calculated by council, but I wish to show council a fairer way of calculating the rates. Fairer way of calculating the rates that are sanctioned by IPART, and why I believe this change should occur now and not until a rate review has been finalised in a couple of years, 19, 20, I believe that it will come through. The method will not change the amount that council collects, but will allow rate increases to be collected fairly. IPART's media release on the 3rd of June 2014 said that through a rate peg and special variation process, IPART determines the increase to council's general income. Councils decide how to allocate the increase among all the different ratepayer categories such as residential, business and farmland. On page 1 of your handout, I've given 3 scenarios showing the difference in the variation between 3 properties with UCV prices, one at 90,000, one at $500,000, one at 1.1 million. These hypothetical scenarios are only to show the variation and discrepancy in the method of calculation. It shows a difference of 7 times more from one to the other, with different price increases were actual increases. On page 2, I have actual figures from the Council's revenue policy 2015, 16, 16, 17 and 17, 18. On this page, 2016-17 residential rate increases was 18.46%, business was 8.24% and farmland was 6.72%. Using that residential rate increase of 18.46 on a $90,000 property, the increase would be $108. On a 1.1 million property, the increase would be $646. That works out to a $537 variation. The same differential occurred with the farmland in 2017-18, which is 14.93%. Using my method, in the 2017-18 year for farmland, residential and business, the increase in that year was $400,706. In that figure was divided by the number of assessments. This would give a case of 6,618 assessments, which would give an increase of only $60.55 for every assessment, other than the increase from 537 or 646. I wish to say before I finish that I'm from Mulwala, and Mulwala's contribution is nearly double the average rates of Corowa and Howlong. Business rates are 3.6 times more than Howlong and 3.2 times more than Corowa. Saying that, I believe that will be addressed in the coming rate review. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk today and hope you look at it in a favourable way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions or comments that I'd like to ask? In relation to those rates? Councillor Longmire.
Yeah, I think going forward, I think it's been mentioned somewhere in the agenda that there'll be an opportunity in the future to reassess our rate income structure. I think that's something that we can workshop in some future time. I'm not sure whether that needs a comment from the General Manager or from yourself, or which way? Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We can discuss that more when the report comes through, but
Yeah.
generally the report leads towards having a rating review of the entire Shire,
Yeah.
considering those options. I think Mr. Seeliger's presentation was more around a general principle about applying more flatter increase across every assessment. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I think
it is related, directly related. I'll be sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further councillors? I suppose the only question I have, Mr. Seeliger, obviously our rating structures on, the ad valorem's the same, but the rating structures on the asset prices. Just wondered whether you may explain, you're not actually talking about that, the basic rate, are you? You're talking about, increases. So therefore, what you're saying is it's still the same, it's still a fair system, but it's the rate increases that come after the fact. I just think that point should be made. Would you like to?
Yes, the ordinary system, or the way the rates are calculated, everybody knows, but I'll say it, the unimproved capital value multiplied the ad valorem plus the base rate. Now, on that's the scenario on that front page where the variation can be on a the one coming up 2.5%, $14.75, as opposed to $104.51 going to $1 million property. That's with a 2.5% increase. But the part up to that, everyone is equal. The same, it will be the same. The income to the council will be the same, but instead of it being $500 from this person and $100 from this person, it'll be shared equally by $60 right across the board. Not touching the original one, the way that it's calculated the council with the value. So I believe when the rate review comes up, that will be looked at, and I'm not here today to talk or even alter that. Just the way that I believe now the rates are calculated unfairly, and the $550, $600 increase on each ratepayer's rates, as opposed to across the road, that's the waterfront, as opposed to across the road, they're paying maybe $100 in the increase. So I just want to make that fairer, but everybody will be paying evenly, and council will still be getting the same amount of money. Does that answer the?
That's good. Yeah, thanks very much. Well, if there's nothing further, we'll move on now to the General Manager's report. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Report 5.1 is a request from the Mulwala Water Ski Club application to purchase part of lot 398 in the DP as listed there. The recommendation for council is to note the report on the request to purchase part of that lot and to support that request for conversion to freehold and sale to the Mulwala Water Ski Club of that part, as highlighted, which council has in the business paper. And just quickly before any discussion on that, has been to council before, and the intent was at that stage to purchase the entire or a fair portion of this lease of the freehold, of the Crown land. This only seeks to purchase a fairly distinct part along the front of the actual building itself, intended to then save quite a lot of, I suppose, red tape and administration burden with Crown lands every time they want to go and do a change or any improvements or any required approvals. There is plans afoot to put an application towards council for some upgrades to that facility, which will add to the offerings down there. But and notwithstanding that, we do receive a revenue for that land, and the clubs indicate that would not seek a reduction in that due to the reduction in the land area of that. It's more so just to bring part of that land onto their freehold title.
Would someone like to move that? Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any questions or comments, councillors, on that? If not, we'll put it. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
So 5.2 is councillor professional development. Recommendation being that the mayor and the councillors complete what's known as PD in a Box online, self-assessment to enable a professional development program to be developed and planned for according to legislative requirements and individual or councillor needs. And point 2, that the assessments be completed by the 11th of May to enable consultation with the GM to identify individual training, and then our training plan, and of course the budget to be developed by 30th June this year. So recommendation there, there's some really good commentary that Heidi, our governance officers, put together in working with Rochelle and others to try and outline a program, which we are required to do, and I know the councillors are keen to get some definition around the way forward of training, so that's there for the consideration of the council.
Okay, can we move, please, councillors? Moved by Councillor Whitechurch, seconded by Councillor Longmire. Questions or comments? Put it all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
5.3 is known as Staff Team Building Day. So council, for information, are advised that on the 11th of May 2018 there is a Staff Team Building Day where we're planning to close offices and depots across the Federation area, still remaining our basic on-call and emergency services as needed, but it's about bringing the entire staff together, and there is some commentary in there about encouraging, inviting the councillors if they wanted to come and attend the first section of that day. But basically the intent was it's around the 2-year anniversary of the merger, but notwithstanding that, there's a whole heap of new staff in the council, and we are spread quite far and wide in some respects, so we felt that it was a chance to bring together, and I know a lot of the other merged councils have done this already, to get the staff to come together and I guess put their projects and issues aside for one day and work on things together. Some quite unique, we think, some fun things and some activities that would hopefully bring some benefits beyond just what they achieve on that day. So recommendations to note in the report, just around the closure of our facilities for that day.
Would someone like to move that, please? Move Councillor Kennedy, seconded Councillor Law. Any questions or comments, Councillor? Councillor.
Mr Mayor, just in relation to the building day, and for Mr Butler, I'm sure that the two councils were still going through some difficult times, so I think it's a great idea. You see a lot of big corporate companies that now do these bonding days and team building, staff morale. I think that if this thing was going to happen, it wouldn't be a bad thing to have it to put into a regular thing, because we're going to have new staff come regularly, and quite often there's a lot of people in the organisation that wouldn't know other people that work in the organisation. So I think to have a one-off's great, but I think it might be something that if you're going to do it as an ongoing thing, so that we can continually look forward to that day and make it happen, whether it's annually or whatever.
Good comment.
What a good idea.
Will there be any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Against? Carried.
5.4 is a letter from the Moira Shire Council seeking council support for the green route for the new Mulwala Yarrawonga Bridge. Council has discussed it briefly in a workshop not that long back. Recommendation there, the detailed report, recommendation there is to note the report and to hold further talks with Moira Shire Council and New South Wales and Victorian Government in relation to the current status of the planning for the new Yarrawonga Mulwala Bridge, and then receive a further report after this occurs.
Would someone like to move that recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Wells. Any questions or comments, Councillor? Councillor Longmire.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. Three councillors in this present day council have been on the journey since back in 2013, and unanimously it's been said before that with two different councils in the change of in 2012, the election, it was previously pre-2012 September elections endorsed that the grey route be the preferred route. And I think it stresses in the report, in the agenda report here, exactly that the reason was that council supported, and can I just touch on the fact that it was endorsed into the next council after 2012, that the council support the grey route and not agree to take ownership and responsibility for the old bridge due to the cost, and further, if the councils cannot agree, which they don't, like the same route, the decision on the route be made by the two road authorities on taking into account all the information available. On that point, the lead agency was Vic Roads, and RMS New South Wales were the supporting agency in that regard. And the other thing is that the four entities all agreed on that there be no responsibility taken for the old bridge. That was unanimously supported. And on the roads authorities agreeing and recommending a route, Council, and this is support this decision to enable lobbying and funding applications to be prepared with the objective of having the Yarrawonga-Mulwala Bridge constructed by 2020. So what I endorse is the fact that we haven't, as a council, previously inhibited any opportunity to get the funding. It's been endorsed by the council twice. The plebiscite that the Moira Council were put into position isn't binding. If you were to do this, and I've publicly stated in pre-election opportunities, that the only way I would abide for any change of opportunity would be for a referendum with ministerial approval for the postcode of Mulwala. Remembering, we have to look after the representatives or our ratepayers on the New South Wales side of the river, right? So out of the 4 entities that are involved in this journey, there's only one that hasn't been happy, right? And so if they had the opportunity and took the opportunity to go to the Victorian government for a referendum, I would support that if it was done on both sides of the river. But they haven't done that because the current Labor government in Victoria are the ones that have made the opportunity that the grey route is the preferred route. So Moira Council have the problem at this point in time. I just absolutely support our position to where it's been. I do endorse more constructive talks, but don't let it be said we go away from this chamber saying that we support another route at this point in time, because all of a sudden some of us are going to lose face. But if there's any opportunity for a referendum, I will support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Thomas.
I'm forever respectful of the former Cora Shire's opinions on the grey route, and because they were elected members, as we stand here today as elected members of the Federation Council, the Moira Shire are actually asking for Federation Council's view on this particular issue, and it has been an issue that has been an ongoing issue now for a number of years. So I think it's great that we've been given the opportunity now to review both the methodology and re-engage the stakeholders. As my fellow councillor Longway said, there's been 4 key stakeholders within this process. So let's review this consultation process, get it back onto the table, have the discussions and conversations as Federation Council.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Law.
I'd like to say that as a councillor of the former Corowa Council and now a Federation councillor, we elected to take to support the grey route because that was the least disruption to our ratepayers. We were at a meeting, Councillor Thomas was there, where Vic Roads and the RMS said that the grey route was the route to be done. What funding is there to change this route? I don't know where they expect the funding to come from. It is just absolutely ludicrous. All it is doing is holding up the start of this bridge. And if it's not built by 2020, what are the people of Mulwala and Yarrawonga going to do? Are they going to come to Corowa to get across the bridge? If that bridge is pulled down in 2020, what are you going to do? I think it's time that we pulled our heads in, agreed with the selected route, the grey route, and went along with the RMS and the Vic Roads and said, yes, that's fine. That's what we have decided, and I think it should stick.
Mr Mayor, if I could pose an amendment to the recommendation and to add the words that Council hold further talks without prejudice.
Yeah, that's what was so. It was moved by Thomas and Wales, Councillor Thomas and Wales. Would you be happy with that, Councillor Thomas and Wales, that amendment?
So an amendment if they
Would added. So, Councillor Meaden, would you just that's point number 1.
Point number 2.
Point number 2.
The Council hold further talks without prejudice with Moira Shire. And the reason for adding that is that we have a stated position. We're certainly happy to talk with Moira to listen to what they have to say, but it's not on any presumption that that will ultimately change our position, but that being respectful to them as the neighbouring shire, we will certainly engage and listen, but without prejudice. We're not going there saying that by attending those or holding those talks that we agree necessarily with their point of view.
Thanks, Councillor Langley. Councillor Watford.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'm obviously coming into the bridge debate. The only information that we can get is the knowledge of our previous councillors and information that we can read on. I think that getting information given to us by various stakeholders around that bridge area, obviously we can get coerced into different opinions. What I do note is that every town that is doing new road work is always bypassing a town. There's no roads getting built that direct traffic back into a town, and there's towns that are wanting to be bypassed. Irrespective of whether Yarrawonga or Mulwala want the route, this bridge is going to be here for another 100 years. I see it, and not living there, as both of those options, or the grey route, only directs the traffic into the town. If you're going to be thinking 50, 60, 100 years forward, the only option is to bypass the town. Now, as I said, I can only go on my short time in council, and there was obviously very good reasons that the previous councillors went with the grey route at the time. The other thing that I guess I listened to Councillor Longmire in that a plebiscite was held, but you would be interested in listening to a referendum. My understanding of a referendum that it was for a constitutional change. I wouldn't have thought that the bridge was going to be constitutional, therefore it would have to be a plebiscite. But that being said, if they had a referendum and went down that line that you were suggesting, Councillor Longmire, would that then, if it produced a green route result, would that mean that we would have to look at the green route? I mean, further to that, I thought that both of the governing bodies, being Vic Roads and RMS, had pretty well decided, and that was where it was at. But obviously the Moira Shire have some leverage or believe that there's an opportunity to go forward with further consultation. So I think acknowledging what the previous council has done, there's reasons for it that we don't know, but I would agree with the recommendation and adding what Councillor Meagle added to it. I think that talks would certainly help, and we'd get probably a clearer picture of why they think that it needs to be the green route.
Good comment by Councillor Watford, and follow on to that with was Councillor Longmire's point of we have to look after our ratepayers in that area. So with more information and actually going along with this recommendation, hopefully that'll give us a feed of information as to where it's at today. But obviously there's been so many changes in this whole thing, it'd be nice to get up to date. Councillor Longmire, did you?
Yeah, two things, if I may. I'm using a bit of time today, but however, a referendum is available with ministerial approval for the circumstances what we're talking about. The second thing is in regard to information being available. There was $7 or $8 million spent on a report for investigating the options, and it started off with 6 options and narrowed it down to 3, I think it was, and then became 2. And so that was in detail. There was extensions of consultation because of misinformation being portrayed in the communities down there. It went on for another 6 months. And so we saw that as well. And the third point that I'd bring up is that about the calculation that Councillor Whitechurch says in regard to bypasses go round the towns. There was an argument in the 2 nearest biggest towns to us, in Albury-Wodonga, back in so many years ago, about a bypass being, and there was, you know, promotion of the bypass and the rest of it. In the end, the people calculated that the greatest thing that could happen, and us that go to Albury 2 or 3 times a week experience, that the bypass is through the middle of the town. Why? Because the interaction between people that live in Albury and work in Wodonga or vice versa, is magnificent. And so you've got the adoption of so much money being spent that it not only complements the bypass traffic in Albury-Wodonga, but it also complements the people that live in that area. It's two towns, but one actual city, and it works magnificently. So given that opportunity in some of those experiences, Vic Roads would have assessed all, in fact they did in lots of instances, about what could happen. And the fact that it's shoving all the traffic and B-doubles down to Belmore Street is a myth. It's not true. Because if you go and research that, it's all there. You can do it and find out. And then you get a better understanding. And remember, ours was a recommendation because we took the information on, and ours was just a supporting recommendation because we don't have to find the money. So at the end of the day, it's the federal government 60%, and I think the other 40%, am I right, Ms Kay, with 20 and 20 allocated between the two state governments. So really, the involvement should be the federal members and the state members, if they're the ones spending the money. That's where a lot of this should happen. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Let's get one more. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I definitely support what Councillor Thomas mentioned about bringing back the pay up and further report. And as Councillor Whitechurch mentioned, like bypasses around town, all the foot there for that reason. Even now they have road trains coming down the main street of Corrie around the roundabout, so it's a very important thing for a bypass for those vehicles.
Road trains go through all vehicles.
Any further comments, councillors? If not, we'll run with the recommendation. Nothing further? We're clear, the movers are clear and happy with that recommendation here, Councillor Thomas and Councillor White. If so, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Report 5.5 is the Corowa swimming pool. The purpose of the report is to allow council to make an in-principle decision on the first stage of delivery of that new Corowa swimming pool complex. So going to the recommendation, a lot of information been across it, a lot obviously, and it's just coming out of the last community workshop meeting we had on this one. Recommendation is that council move the committee of a whole, which is not a closed session, it's just a committee, to allow this to be discussed further. So it's open session, but relaxing the rules of the debate to allow more informal discussion to occur. We're still on the live stream, we're still transparent, so that just allows council to discuss the report, background, hopefully frame a new resolution out of that, move back into the council meeting to then resolve in principle our decision to go forward.
Would Councillor like to move that we go into committee of whole, please? Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Neagle. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, councillors, we might just read through that recommendation. I'll have my recommendations.
We've got committee of the whole. Yeah, committee of the whole. Yeah. So all we have is committee of the whole.
Yep.
And that's just the report.
To the report. Councillor Neagle.
Mr Mayor, could I open the agenda by saying that I'd like to propose or move the council put on display option 2A as the preferred option for consideration or display for 28 days.
Councillor Watt.
Along with Councillor Neagle, I also support option 2A, and I believe that yes, that would be good to put that on display as the preferred option.
Councillor Whitechurch.
Yeah, in light of the option 2A coming as one of the options, I am against option 2A. I support option 4, the 50 metre pool. During the discussion, I'll elaborate on as to why and as to the costings that have now come to light. But yes, I can't support option 2A directly, but I can support a 50 metre pool with an option to look at other quotes as to include an indoor 25 metre pool, but not to the magnitude of 2A.
Thank you, Councillor Whitechurch. Councillor Fox.
Once again, I like to look at research and what our community is saying and things like that, and I find it interesting that we're discussing an option that our community, from a consultation process and also from a engagement process that they've carried on their own backs within the Corowa community, they were saying to us that they would really like a 50 metre outdoor pool. And as you're all aware, as my fellow councillors, just let the people in the chamber know that every week we receive information from our communications officer, and that communication includes press release and articles and letters to the editor and all that kind of thing. And probably about 2 months ago, And that talked about the outdoor experience. It was from a grandmother, and it talked about her outdoor experience of taking her grandchildren to an outdoor 50-metre pool, and it was here in Corowa, and getting the feedback from those kids. And I thought, wow, that really hits the nail on the head. We are an outdoor society, and we do enjoy the outdoors, but just that experience, for people to have that experience. Nothing against indoor pools. I think indoor pools have their place. But are we going to lose that outdoor experience by having an indoor pool? Just for your consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Kennedy. I'm sorry, would Councillor Thomas like to put an option forward for just for conversation for what your option was? Sorry, Councillor Kennedy.
Just based on the process that we've gone through thus far, and yes, we have had, just so everybody in Chamber knows, we have as councillors, and obviously some of us haven't been through the complete journey as other councillors have, but based on what we have been presented thus far, I would like to consider the option for the outdoor pool, based on the community feedback that we've received.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Kennedy.
I'm actually going back, Councillor Thomas there. Like option 4, we're a summer town. Like people come in summertime. Mulwala's the same. The lake's there. It's I think they say it's only going to be over 15 weeks, which is less running costs and bits and pieces. It's going to be cheaper to run than an indoor multi-purpose pool. But there's also options. Like I've been doing sums like I run a business, and I've actually looked at them there and I've dealt with people and I've contacted people and just out of my own interest to see what a pool does cost. And I know what the recommendation there, how much it's going to cost is, I reckon it's blown out to proportions. I reckon we get an option to put out a 50-metre pool, send it out to tender to design and construct and get a decent concept of how much we're going to spend. And then you might be able to do both options with that money that we're going to spend. I've contacted, like I've dealt with splash parks and bits and pieces and doing caravan parks and that. I know what they cost, and they don't cost that much. And I'd like to support the option 4 with the splash park and the pool to start with. And we might get the option to do something else as well with the money if we want to go down that track and borrow that much amount of money.
Yeah, Councillor Kennedy, we need to know how much the apples are worth first, don't we?
Exactly.
Yes. Councillor Lyon.
Yeah, I'm sick of looking at numbers, Mr Mayor. This has been going on for 12 or 15, how long, Ms Kane?
22 plus years.
22 plus years. There's 2 tables of costs that I've had in our agenda report and other things. One is based on the Corowa Swimming Pool Options Review at a glance, and then there's another one, Development Options Consultants Report. In basically they identify similar numbers, except to where we get to the red part on the consultants report. Is there any clarity in regard to that, Mr General Manager, in regard to, or Ms Kay? I know it's to do with the shared reception area.
Yeah, so that relates to the potential staging. So the idea of the shared reception is that if we build that, we'll save in staffing costs, which really comes into play if we're selecting the indoor option and less the outdoor option, because we're not open as we're only basing those things on 15 weeks. So it doesn't save much in staffing costs. So with this table, we've shown if council chooses, say a 50-metre option, but builds the pool and uses the existing admin area as stage 1, and then if we are serious about stage 2, i.e. building the shared entry to ball park and entry to the pool at a later stage, it shows that you won't, so for that, if it's say 2 years before we build the second stage, the operational costs increased out of only building stage 1 because we're not reducing, because we're running 2 admin centres. Is that?
Yeah, in some ways it does, yeah. Thanks for that, yeah. And I think if the existing pool, if I may, Mr Mayor, continue a little bit, the existing pool wasn't in the condition where it is, that it absolutely had it. Even the report back in 1993 told us that such a thing. Would we even be contemplating an indoor heated pool? I mean, what I'm saying is that why have we got that in the agenda? Because we have to, because the existing pool is finished. Okay, so it gives us the opportunity to go either way. But if that existing pool, I mean, we wouldn't be talking about renewing the pool, obviously, but would we be looking at, what I'm trying to discuss is that would we be looking at a indoor heated pool, even if we didn't have to physically build a new one there for the replacement of the existing one? So that's something I think is a consideration as well. Have we got the need to want it? Have we done this, or we've done ESA studies in regard to the embracing of the caravan park and all the rest of it? But yeah, so I just wonder, would it be in our discussion topic, if, you know, would we be looking at that? Other than we've got the time, we've got the chance to do it, I guess, because we have the option, we have to renew something. But anyway, yeah, I just think that there is a real, in research that I've done with grandkids and all the rest of it, and you know, they've been members of the swimming club, and so some of that stuff now is they're telling me that they won't be swimming in the winter time. I've been all over the shop on this, 360 in some ways, and I'm trying to establish where, you know, the kids that are coming through, the 8s and 10s and 12s and 14s, well, when they get to 14s and 15s and 16s, they've learnt to swim, and they're doing water skiing or wakeboarding or whatever they're doing. A lot of them are doing that. And so the concentration is on the younger age group to teach those younger kids to swim. So obviously I'm not announcing anything that's different and saying there's arguments both sides here, but I'm leaning towards the indoor heated pool for the fact that you can get kids to come through and teach them. The big challenge is the cost of running it. I mean, what are we looking at in round figures? How much money a year? How much? 400. 400 a year. Yeah, to run the indoor heated pool. Is it more than that, Mr. Gore?
No, it's not more than that. Just pointing out the cost under option 1 as well, which is also an indoor combined pool and outdoor water park. So it's just, that's a different running cost than option 2A.
Yeah.
That's all I was pointing out.
Thanks, Dave.
The running costs will really, you know, in the table here we've shown 408, an anticipated loss of $408,000, but that doesn't include, that's annual, for the indoor pool, but that doesn't include the repayment of a loan, and so you know, we don't have, I guess, we won't know that exactly, although currently, based on the current estimate of cost and the current availability, where we're saying that, you know, a loan of a $4 million loan, if we need it, would be $200,000 a year just to pay back on those IPART 4% rates over 20 years. But there's a whole range of different scenarios which we've attached to the report. You could take the loan over a longer period of time. You know, there's a risk of the interest rate going up.
600.
Yeah, and then depreciation. So on council's long-term financial plan, you know, we have to calculate depreciation, because the theory is that in 50 years we need to be able to have the money in the bank to build the next pool. So then we have a depreciation factor, which, you know, on these estimates could be $150,000 a year, which isn't real cash, but it will show up on the.
Still got to be shown. Sorry, you said.
Oh, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. It's with those components, it's weighed in red on the next page at 908,000 a year.
908,000 a year.
Yes.
Includes depreciation.
Including depreciation.
So just to clarify, including depreciation of could be $150,000 a year, including loan repayments that could be up to $200,000 a year. There's a lot of variables around this, so this is just a scenario. And also the big, I guess, the factor is the unknown around the revenue potential of Ball Park Caravan Park. So, you know, this new shared model is, you know, has, you know, we have high hopes around what we can do with Ball Park Caravan Park in terms of redevelopment and using the revenue from Ball Park Caravan Park to help offset. It's going to be a great asset for Ball Park Caravan Park, so help offset those running costs. And obviously, you know, we've had a lot of discussion about Ball Park Caravan Park in terms of not knowing the real revenue around that.
Thanks very much for that.
Councillor Ward.
Okay. Now, going back to discuss the letter from the lady that was in the paper, the grandmother, part of her grandchildren's wonderful experience was to be able to jump into the deep end of the pool and to jump off the diving board. So we're not going to have a big deep end of a pool, and we're certainly not going to have a diving board. The proposed loss for the 50-metre outdoor pool or running costs would be $689,000 a year, so it's not going to be cheap either. I believe that we need to have the best we can have to teach the children to swim. It is Federation Council's obligation to teach the children to swim before they get to the river. Once they turn around 14, they're far too cool for the pool. You've got to swim in the river, you've got to float, you've got to play, you've got to water ski, you've got to do all those things, and we need to have them to swim before then, and swim well. If they can swim all year round, there are lots of parents in town who take their grandchildren or children to Wangaratta or to Albury to the heated pools in the winter time to reinforce what they've learnt in the summer, so as that they're still swimming. When I was the lessee of the swimming pool, one kid came in who hadn't swam for 9 months, jumped in the deep end because he could swim last year, but he'd forgotten how to swim. We had to jump in and pull him out. If we'd have done this 20 years ago when we had the problems, it would have cost us $2 million. The longer we leave it, the more it's going to cost, which Mr. Parker said as he was leaving the last council meeting, oh, this is good, the longer we go, the more we're saving, but it's not. The longer we go, the more it's going to cost. I'm for the indoor heated pool, even if we staged the heated pool, which we could do. It's something for everybody then. It can be opened up, it's going to have fire station doors that will open up, so it can be indoor, outdoor. For the summertime, there is the splash park for the kids who want to be out in the sun. With the skin cancers that we're having now, the indoor pool is much better, and I am all for the indoor.
Councillors, I'll step over to Councillor Wells in a second, but I just wanted to make a point that where we're trying to get to today is an in-principle decision to go forward. That in-principle decision, once we know what the apples are worth, as Councillor Kendi pointed out, we can actually make other decisions that may allow a heated facility, etc. But I suppose, so we put our preference forward and then we see what the dollars come back at to make that final decision. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, sir. As Councillor Bronwyn Thomas said, we are an outdoor community, and Councillor Kenny said we can have adults. For me, I support the option 4.
Okay, councillors, would anyone else? Councillor Megan.
Right, reply, Mr. Mayor. This is a complex decision. There are a number of components to it, and I acknowledge the letter that we all got from the swimming club because I thought it was very well structured, well written, and there were some very valid points made. As Councillor Law pointed out, the one reason that we are considering building another pool to run at an operating loss, which no business would ever consider doing, the only reason that we're doing that is to teach our kids to swim, or to have the facility where our kids can learn to swim, probably is more accurate. And that, to be able to teach them or have that facility where they can learn to swim all year round, from anecdotal evidence and from conversations with many ratepayers where ratepayers are taking their children out of the council area to learn to swim during the winter months, as Councillor Law said, to reinforce what they learned during, so that that facility is available. They can learn to swim all year round, not just through a limited season. Notwithstanding that people swim for recreation, they swim for sport, and they may only do that over the summer, but this is about opportunity. We're looking to spend a significant amount of funds, and to my mind, that if we are going to spend those funds, we need to get the best value to the widest proportion of the community that we possibly can. That way leads me to the point, and it's been raised before, a lot of backyard pools are coming up. If you take the photo area of Corowa and probably every other town, a number of backyard pools. Why do people have backyard pools? Because when they get home and they're hot, they want to have somewhere to swim. They don't generally use the public pool because they've got their own pool. In the summertime, when do they want to swim? They want to swim when the weather's not at best and still have that aquatherapy, and we haven't even got to them yet, but their opportunity to swim when the weather's not great almost dictates that you need to have some form of heating, let alone or covered indoor facility. I think it's important that we look at the whole community, and I mean that as the whole community, and I'll acknowledge that I perhaps tend to have more contact with the elderly on a professional basis, and the number of people that have been disappointed that there was no facility during the winter, that they also had to travel for aquatherapy, and we have a disproportionately higher level of elderly people within our community who are perhaps the silent majority in this argument that haven't been on social media putting their case forward for not hydrotherapy necessarily, but aquatherapy to be able to use on a regular basis, very much contributing to the health of the broader community. The other thing to be considered here is, and this is where it gets complex, is the economic development. As Ms. Kate pointed out, what we're looking at here is one section that is going to place a financial burden on council. The only way that that can be mitigated is with the development of Ball Park Caravan Park and the increased economic development that holds. If you are going to provide a facility that attracts outside money to come and increase the economic development of this council area, then you need to, as Councillor Whitechurch says, you've got to have something that makes them want to come. And I believe that we are missing an opportunity here if we are going to consider to replace what we have. If you always do what you always have done, you always get what you always have got. And what we will have is a new pool with the same amount of usage, with the same amount of operating costs, not to mention the capital cost of repayment. If we are going to be a little bit visionary, a little bit bolder, and take the opportunity that presents itself as part of the combined big picture thing with Ball Park, and that's integral because there's no point upgrading a park if it doesn't have the attractions. This provides an attraction purely because of its proximity. Then we have something that we can really hang our hat on to increase our economic development, and we all know how important that is in small country towns if they're going to survive, no matter which country town it is. We are an outdoorsy thing. We have to be very mindful of the fact that we have one of the highest rates of skin cancer in this local government area, as reported previously, and whilst we'll still have outdoor activities, this one is being looked at as an all year round activity that can be used all year round by the broader community. We are looking at a 50-year project. We need not to look. We have a lot of historical information. We have a lot of history regarding the current 50-metre pool. There's an old adage that the only constants in this world is change, and this is an opportunity, as Councillor Longmire said. The pool's had its life. If we replace it, we have what we've always got. This is the opportunity to make something better for our community currently, to provide an attraction for tourism and economic development. And as Councillor Kennedy said, he's got concerns about some of the numbers, and that's probably a greater thing, because therefore all the numbers that have been bandied around, as Councillor Longmire said, there's been numbers going right, left and centre. And as the Mayor said, we need to get the cost of the apples. This is the highest cost placed before us at this stage. Let's get the cost of those apples. Let's look at being the leaders for the next 50 years, for this community, for the visitation rights, and for the broader community. I believe that the heated indoor pool option 2A is the only way that we can move forward rather than stay static. Thank you.
Councillor Whitechurch.
Mr Mayor, and obviously taking on board all the comments, between Councillor Meagle with the costing and wanting change. I've said right back when we looked at going and including a larger splash park, the pool at the moment, we're putting in a pool because we're replacing a pool. If that pool was sitting there and it was losing money, I'm sure we'd be sitting here as councillors or as directors saying, what can we do to enhance the pool to generate more people come through it? I believe Councillor Meagle has touched on the fact that we have to make something different. That's exactly right. I believe that the 50 metre pool, the fact that it's there is going to be scope and there is going to be quotes with design and construct tendering that's going to bring that way under that 8 million. The council's obviously agreed and is in the position that they're going to spend at least 8.4 million, because that's our cheapest price. So we're going to make a decision on an $8.4 million expenditure. I look at, and I've spoken to numerous pool builders. A guy sent me a quote, and in his quote here he's put, and this is from Curatech Lifestyle Pools, we're in the final stages of completing Mission Beach Aquatic Facility. This project has a 25 metre heated pool, a 45 metre long billabong pool with water features and a slide, a 12 metre heated hydro pool. This project, for all mentioned pools, for the structure listed below, with the cost of the pool is 4.4 million excluding GST. The Lockhart Pool has put a design and construct out a month and a half ago. They got the tenders in on TenderLink in 2 weeks. They called a meeting and decided on the tender that day, and that pool facility started for Lockhart and Henty. The 33 metre pool that they're putting in is 1.3 million. One's a 25, the other's a 33, I think. So you look at Narrandera, 1.2 million. The costs, as Councillor Kennedy said, are way out of the ballpark. They're astronomical. I believe that if we agree on the 50 metre pool because the hole's already there, this council will be in a position, given that they've said that they're going to, or have pledged rate in excess of 8 million, we'll be in a position to make a facility like Councillor Meagle said, where there'll be a 50 metre pool, there will be a 25 metre or an indoor program pool for the learn to swim, heated. We'll have a decent outdoor splash park. This facility over here could end up having a rock wall in it. It could have any other features and become a whole complex, and then Cora becomes a go-to place, not just another town that has a pool. Because even if we put in a heated 25 indoor metre pool, we're no different to Albury, to Wangaratta. Shepparton Aqua Moves have got the whole complex. If you go and have a look at Shepparton Aqua Moves, they're dragging people in their droves. I agree to learn to swim, but everyone in our age and your age learnt to swim in a cold pool for 4 months of the year. People are going to drown even with a learn to swim. It's as sad as it is. I agree the facility will be used all round, but if we go for the 50 metre pool, you will find that the design and construct that the prices will come in, if it's under 4 million, under 5 million, we're still going to have enough money to build a $1.5 million indoor heated pool. And with the research that Councillor Meagle's done, and with the hydro and the solar, I think you'll find that we'll have quite a facility over there with a decent splash park that people will be wanting to come to the town all year round. And it will enhance and produce a hell of a lot more income.
Councillor Son, yeah, would you like to take
just a couple of quick points. Really good, obviously, discussion on that. I just wanted to flag the council while we're in the committee to be considerate of, and if it's either way, it doesn't just affect our costing, about the 3.6 million which we're workshopping later this afternoon. So we need to have some discussion, I would have thought, about whether there's any use of that future funding towards this project or not, because it does affect the capex of the project and our loan amount. Secondly, the staged or refurbishment of the existing building, the amenities. We need to really get, in principle, where we're going to go. Are we ever going to build the new combined shared entry caravan park, swimming pool building, or not? I know we can go out for tender and we can accept alternate tenders that say we don't build it or etc. But I just want to get a feel for the councillors of whether that's on the table, because as our consultant said, that does obviously affect operating costs, but affects pool location for the 50. Because if we're going to even consider not doing that, we need to look at if you're going to put a 50 back in, not going to build the new caravan park one, what goes, I would have thought, in the same area as where it is now. So that's the second one. And the third, or probably the last 2 points I'll combine, is the alternate tenders, which we've talked about in the report, and we're throwing around words like design and construct. I would have thought, and talking with our Director of Engineering as well, on the on getting this tender out into the public domain, would be that we would have, I would like to see an option in principle adopted. We can race out and get our more detailed designs, etc. But allowing for that design and construct and they price it up as to how we think we want it built, still allowing an alternative where the market and the experts can really come and dictate what they think can achieve our outcomes, satisfy what options that the council were happy with in the adopted option, but another option for consideration. There'll be obviously some really detailed assessment go through, and some workshops with councillors when they hit the table, because no matter how operational we may see it, it's the biggest CapEx project this council I think will undertake for a long time, and glad we're not part of the funding for the new bridge down there at Mulwala. So it is a massive project in our budget, $30 to $40 million operational budget to go and do 6 or 8 million is a big one-off project, but councils are here to do those sort of things to deliver. So I'm comfortable with that, but we just need to I wouldn't mind a little bit of close on that bit.
Councillors would, thank you, Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that if we're only going to build 50 metre pool, then there's no point in doing the shared facility with Ballpark, and that becomes a whole separate development as well. The only reason that you would actually combine the shared facilities with the caravan park would be because that swimming facility is the attraction to the caravan park, and that reduces the running cost and the operating. So unless we're actually making a committed effort to put a attraction facility as part of the caravan park, we may as well just leave it where it is, keep the caravan park separate, accept the losses that the pool will always incur, and that the caravan park will have to make its own attraction somewhere else and have the same occupancy and attraction or development. To my understanding and belief, I believe that we have to look at, we're going to combine them, you do the heating, and we can perhaps put the 50 in later. But you have to have the attraction, and that shared facility comes as part of the whole attraction to them. Otherwise, it's there what we've already got. And the splash park will once again only operate in the warmer months. So the clarification comes down to, I think it's based on the decision. If we go 50 metre, there's no point in having the shared facilities. If we go the heated, then there is value in having the shared facilities because it becomes the attraction of the caravan park, and that's where the economic development will stem from.
Councillor Whitechurch.
Yeah, in light of Mr Butler's request for a closure or a direction on the shared facility, again, $2.7 million that was put in there for the shared facility is pretty daunting for what it's going to be. I think in one of the meetings or council workshops, Councillor Kennedy, who's involved with commercial real estate building, and said that it's way over the top. So I think that the fact that that's included in our costings is probably a little bit fictitious and gives us a false sense of security. But in light of the pool possibly being a whole draw card, and bear in mind, if we go and put something in there now, like a 50 metre pool, and there is funds still available for a 25 metre indoor heated pool, and we have a splash park, and then looking down the track in 5 years' time, we're adding to it with other features to make it a facility, then people are going to walk in and use the whole landmass of an area. I think that if the shared facility was just put in at the start, we're basically going to be paying a lot of money just to have people come into a pool area. Whereas if we use the existing facility, obviously the 25 would have to be modified, but the 25 can be used, and the 50 can be used, and the splash park. So it's generating this immediate income from the minute that it opens, and we haven't got this redesign happening straight away, because it would have to look to be redesigned either straight away or not too far after the opening of the facility. The other thing is, if the park is going to increase in its patronage and the whole thing, and I think Councillor Law indicated from her days there, you cannot run it as a shared thing. It's not going to minimise the labour that much. You can't have people checking in, checking out, going to look at a complaint, and then have people running the pool entity as well. It's still going to be the same labour content 90% of the time, irrespective of whether you've got two facilities or one. the distance that they're going to be from the front. If you look at somewhere like SeaWorld on the Gold Coast, it's 50 acres or whatever it might be. People are walking in the front gate, and by the time they get down to the ferry back of it, they've probably walked, 800 or 900 metres to get to the last thing. So where the entry is pretty irrelevant. If they're going to walk from the back of the caravan park to get to the entry, I don't think that's going to have an effect on them getting into a fun place to spend the day.
So, councillors, would anyone else like to make a comment for that? Just because then I'll go out of the committee of the whole and get a vote on each one. The option, first full option, then the new building, the amenities building, and what was that last one that we wanted for the integrity?
I wouldn't be suggesting that to vote on those elements, just some discussion about funding, staging, and just really for information about the alternative tenders. I think we've covered that. Let's just bring it back.
Councillors, does anyone else have a comment on the admin building? So we can move on to the Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, I've seen the concept plans, and as Councillor Watcher said, I am a commercial builder, and to be honest, I'd love to build that building for that money. Just, but if you couldn't build something for $500,000 down there for a shared reception, I'll go there, pretty much. As long as it's toilets and a front desk, pretty much. So, you can nearly write that $2 million straight off. Like, it's just practicality. Depends if you want the big Taj Mahal sitting there or something that's practical and works. So, there's plenty of options. The scope there at the moment, we've got 11 million. We've got $11 million there, which is a huge scope to do a lot of money. So I think you can do a lot more money once you get some tenders in and get it worked out properly.
Yeah. And Councillor Kennedy, it almost sounds like with the conversation we're having, it's something if you had to, you could do later anyway.
Exactly.
So it's that. Councillor
Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment. I'm more confused now than ever because I've read all these numbers, I've gone through them for 22 years or whatever. Now I'm hearing commercial builders of pools and bridge builders and all the rest telling me that these numbers are nowhere near the number.
Councillor Longway, and that's exactly the point we're trying to get to. So
I think I might just comment on that. I mean, the consultant's made it very clear that they're high-end figures. He hopes he doesn't want to put a report up that tells we can deliver it for $4 million and it goes to $8 million. So I think that's where the figures have got to. Quantity surveyors, he's been openly said that he's looked at what Wodonga costs and everything else. So he's always going to, the consultant's always going to make sure they put some, he's got 20% contingency across them. So there's some comfort, I would have thought, which is probably where the other comments coming from about where they've heard cheaper prices. But, you've got to be careful about whether they're FEMA or accredited and whatever else. And Mike's been pretty upfront with saying that the cost, if it went anywhere close to that, you'd be probably going pretty badly, I would have thought. So that's where I think the two sides are coming from with the different low cost versus high end. Mike's openly said, our consultant, that he put a report and put some costings in that he would not likely see anywhere, wouldn't want to go over that cost. So that's where I think the discussion's gone. They've heard other prices getting cheaper. So.
And that's why we need to get that cost by tendering.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So we've got morning tea, don't we?
Yeah, well, councillors, it is past our morning tea break time. Would you like to have a short break now before and then we'll move back into...
We could resume full council after morning tea.
Yeah. Okay? Yep. Thank you.
Got to go back at